In a world where busyness is worn like a badge of honor, it's almost impossible to imagine breaking free from the shackles of success. Working long hours, skipping meals, missing or being late to important life events, constantly playing catch-up, exhausted to the bones. This has been normalized, especially in the medical and healthcare arena. Practice owners are fleeing to corporate practices or leaving medicine altogether in hopes of recapturing their time and energy. But you are here for a reason, and you've been searching for answers. Welcome to Thriving Practice. I'm your host, Tracy Cherpeski. I'm an executive coach and consultant and time leadership expert. I'm mom to two amazing teenagers and a menagerie of adopted furry family members. I am on a mission to help practice owners take back at least one day per week for the rest of their careers so they can focus on healing their patients and falling back in love with their practice. Together we learn, connect with like-minded practice owners and medical business experts, and expand your connection to an international community of peers. In each episode, we discuss the business of medicine and healthcare, how to avoid the pitfalls of success, and how to improve the bottom line, paving the way to exquisite fulfillment in your career and life. Join us each week to learn how you can grow your practice while focusing on what you love most. You'll want to take notes. So let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 86 of Thriving Practice. I'm so glad you're here, and I want to thank you so much for being a listener. When we first conceptualized doing a podcast, we were very intentional about the kind of learning to bring you and choosing guests who bring a particular expertise to the table, and really to make sure that we covered all things business in terms of running a successful and scalable healthcare practice. I sincerely hope that you found value in what our guests share and in our solo episodes. As we close out 2022, we're looking ahead at how we can continue to improve the podcast and bring you more of what would serve you. Next week, I'll go a little more in depth, but for now, I will share that we have some exciting additions to the podcast, and we really look forward to sharing them with you. So here's a little sneak peek, just to keep you interested. You can expect to hear and learn from more experts who serve medical and healthcare providers in various business capacities. You'll also get more frequent solo episodes and exclusive invitations to roundtables and masterclasses with an international community of experts and peers. You'll want to keep your ears perked up to learn about how to join these incredible opportunities. If you've not subscribed to the podcast yet, I strongly encourage you to do so to make sure you don't miss a beat. So let's move on to this week's episode. This week, I'm talking about Pillar 3 of Time Leadership. You may remember listening to Pillar 1, which we replayed in episode 81, called Why Time Management Doesn't Work, and Pillar 2, How to Appraise Your Time, in episode 77. We've linked them in the show notes. You can also go back and search for them on whatever platform you use to listen to the podcast. I will share just a brief review of the time leadership pillars to refresh your memory so you don't have to go catch up right away, but you can go catch up and then you can come back and listen later to the other episodes. So Pillar 1 is discovery. This is where we take the time to get crystal clear about your goals and what you want to achieve. We take the time to look at how your life and practice would look if you built your business around the life you want to live rather than building your life around your practice. You'll connect with your vision of success, your big picture, and you'll start to identify the things that get in the way of building your practice around your life and really living the life you say you want to live. Pillar 2 is analysis. Now, I have my clients track their time for a couple of weeks to see how they're spending every 15-minute block of time. And yes, it's a little tedious, but it is seriously eye-opening. We also place a monetary value on each provider's time so that even the seemingly minor and incidental time leaks now show where inefficiencies are costing your practice. Like I said, it's seriously eye-opening. We also identify ways in which to start to recover time and estimate the amount of time that they will recover and approximately how long it'll take to get there. And then finally, what we're covering today is Pillar 3, which is inspired action. We are going to talk action plan, next best practical steps, and solidifying workarounds to the roadblocks that we identify in Pillar 1, the things that get in your way. So if you're ready, and I'd like to invite you to be ready, it's time to grab something to write with and get into action. So once we've identified your goals, what you really want, and the roadblocks to your success, you'll have worked through the value of your time and where you're spending it. In pillar 3, we're working with a different perspective on time, which is less about spending it or it running out and much more about how to invest it wisely in order to maximize your results, free up your precious time so you can work on project, research, or whatever you desire within your practice, and begin to shift the focus of your practice growth to revolve around the life you want to live rather than you trying to figure out how to squeeze a life into your busy work schedule. I know this might be an interesting concept and maybe a little hard to believe that it's possible, but I'm going to share some stories that will help you see that it is possible. So, I am a big fan of keeping things simple. And to quote Leonardo da Vinci, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Also, I don't know about you, but life and business are complex enough. So I'm certainly not inclined to introduce complicated plans that would be next to impossible to implement, let alone sustain. When I'm working with a client, we take the data that we've gathered during the discovery and analysis pillars, and we start to prioritize what feels most important and then build the plan from there. I use a time leadership quadrant, which is quite simple and supportive in helping you keep priorities organized in a very streamlined way. If you've got your notepad, grab it, draw a rectangle. Now put a cross through it so you end up with 4 squares. The top left-hand square is quadrant A. Label it A. This is things to complete today. Complete. So it might be a step in something, right? So we're just going to let that be no more than 5 items. And please, please, pretty please, prioritize your self-care and 1 other personal item on that list. So really 3 business, 2 personal. The rest of the items are things to complete, which could be a step in a process or wrapping up some details, but not beginning and completing an entire project unless that's actually realistic. The upper right-hand square is quadrant B. So moving over to the right. This is where you put items to complete by the end of the week. These items may be steps in a process or larger chunks of a project, which you'll move over to quadrant A when it's time to complete them on the day that you're going to complete them. So you may be in progress for a week, but by the end of the week, each item that you've moved over to A will be completed. So this leads me to the lower left square, which is quadrant C. This is for medium-term projects or goals. Now, with the quick pace of change these days, I'd like to suggest and always, admonish my clients that this should be 3 to 6 month projects, nothing longer, right? Unless it's a really large project like a build out or something that requires more time that you also can track. You know how much time, more or less, to expect, right? Now, over time, parts of quadrant C get chunked down and moved over to B to complete by the end of a week when you've assessed your time and when you'll have time for it. And then it moves over to A for completion. And now for my favorite quadrant, which is the lower right quadrant, quadrant D, but it's really 3 Ds. It's do it now, delegate it, or delete it. And during the holidays, I replace that third D with ditch it and have a party. So if you think about it, the time leadership quadrant really is a full-on delegation tool. You're either delegating items to a particular time frame, items or action steps or project pieces to a particular time frame to a different person, or completely off the list of things to do. So you're a master of delegation. You're welcome. My clients love this tool because it's so easy to run through in your mind. You may find it useful to write it down and organize it each week. And I encourage you to do this until you've made a habit of running everything through the time leadership quadrant. But your brain will start to do it automatically over time. And you'll start to look at it each week or think about it each week and then each day without having to really process and go, wait, what's A, what's B? You'll just know it. So as you probably know, it takes a minimum of 60 days to form a new habit. So I invite you to incorporate a written version of this into your first quarter of 2023 until your mindset becomes one of prioritizing according to the Time Leadership Delegation Quadrant. And that's the ABCD or triple Ds. We have a free resource to help you create your own time leadership delegation quadrant. You can go to tracycherpeski.com/quadrant to get your workbook. Now, this workbook will take you through the process and it helps you put the quadrant into action. There's also bonus content in there, which, we believe in delivering high value quality content that you can start to use right away. So go grab it. We're happy to share it with you. So one of two things is going to happen. One, you're going to go through it and it's going to be great and you're going to put it together and you can implement it on your own. And I just ask that you let me know how it's going because I like to get that feedback that something that has worked for my clients is also working for you. The second possibility is that you like it and you decide that you'd like some support with implementing it. So as always, if you'd like my support in crafting your detailed, complete time leadership blueprint for the coming year, we do have a special offer for you. We're going to be phasing out our time leadership blueprint VIP session. So from now until March 15th, we're offering a substantial savings on this standalone service. We're offering a one-to-one session with yours truly. You get 90 minutes with me to craft your blueprint. The regular investment is $1,500 and we're offering it for $750. After March 15th, we're rolling this time leadership blueprint session into our full service coaching programs. And this will only be available to existing clients. We will, if you decide to do this, deep dive and fine tune through the lens of the 3 pillars that we've talked about today and in previous episodes. And you'll leave our session with a clear, detailed blueprint for how you will invest your time in 2023. I encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. Email Time Leadership to support@tracycherpeski.com and we'll share details on how to schedule your blueprint session with me. We've linked everything in the show notes to make it easy for you. Now, to help you understand what this does for you, I'd really like to share a couple of client stories. One of my current clients is a psychotherapist, and he has implemented the Time Leadership Delegation Quadrant, and it's amazing to see it in action. He started his private therapy practice almost a year ago, and with our support and guidance, he has built up his practice in record time and carved out at least 6 hours each week for what we call CEO time and what he calls business development time. We started, this is not going to be a shock to you, by identifying his goals and his vision of success. And he got clear on his highest priorities and the biggest moneymakers in his practice and identified time and energy drains to help him stay focused on what he really needed to do and what needed his attention during his first year in practice, which also coincided with our first year of working together. After a year in practice, some trial and error, and several iterations, he now runs all projects and to-do items through the quadrant on a weekly basis. And he breaks things down to the tasks at the same time. Now, at this point, he's able to manage most of this in his mind, maybe writing down the larger component like quadrant C, but not necessarily writing a new quadrant each week. And he simply asks himself now, like where something that feels urgent fits on the time leadership quadrant. If it's not an A or B, then it's moved into C with notes and a timeline for when to start moving things into B, which as a reminder is to complete by the end of the week, and then ultimately moved into quadrant A, which is to be completed on the same day. Now, if you're already running your practice and you've not found a way to free up CEO time or business development time, your experience will be different from a client with a new practice, but have faith. It can be done with some finagling. A now graduated client currently runs a specialty practice out of a hospital center, and he has a private regenerative medicine practice. We created his time leadership blueprint, and we allotted about 3 to 4 months to begin to shift how he was investing his time with the ultimate goal of freeing 1 full day per week for him to dedicate to new patient consultations and overseeing his private practice. With clarity about what he wanted to accomplish, we set to work with his team at the hospital center to begin to condense his patient load and free up a whole day for him to be present at his other practice. It took a full 3 months to shift his schedule and buy back that 1 day per week. But once it was complete, this is so interesting. He noticed that he was way less stressed, more focused, and able to be fully present at both of his 2 practices with very few issues condensing his time at the one and being available, and this is air quotes here, only 1 day per week at his private practice. Of course, he's available to his team for questions, but he currently is only physically in his private practice 1 day per week. Another thing that happened is the revenues and new inquiries that turned into patients at his private practice started to incrementally increase. And over time, they hit their stride and began to meet their growth goals. They were floundering for a bit in the beginning there. So, as I mentioned, these things take time, particularly if you're already leading a busy practice. But with the right guidance and clarity, you can take back up to 1 day per week to use for whatever you want. Most of my clients use the time that they've bought back for research, attending or speaking at conferences, planning much needed time away from work, and making sure they have time to live a full life outside of their practices. I know this might even be mind blowing to you, right? If you're a busy provider, maybe you've even been trained to be busy and not expect to have much of a life outside of your career. So let's review what we've learned today. We reviewed the 3 pillars of time leadership, which are discovery, analysis, and inspired action. We learned that in order to take action, we must prioritize the first 2 pillars so our action plans are meaningful and productive. Once you've worked through the first 2 pillars, you can create your action plan and start to engage your team to commit to making the necessary adjustments to your schedule to free up your time. Now, just to clarify, when I say inspired action, I simply mean that you're connecting to your vision and filtering all action steps and projects through your vision and the analysis that you've made of how you want to invest your time and how you value your time. As I mentioned before, if you would like support in crafting your own time leadership blueprint, we have 2 ways we can support you. You can go to tracycherpeski.com/quadrant to receive your free copy of the Time Leadership Delegation Quadrant. And you can inquire about our special offer for a one-on-one VIP Time Leadership Blueprint session with me for half the price, offered through March 15th. That means, just to be clear here, the last appointment available for this amazing opportunity is March 15th. So you'll want to act now. We have limited spaces available. The way that you can inquire and get on calendar is to email us at support@tracycherpeski.com to inquire. Links for the workbook and our email are in the show notes. I hope you've found value in today's episode and that you'll share your progress and celebrate your success with us. From our hearts to yours, we are wishing you and yours a beautiful holiday season. We'll see you in 2023. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Thriving Practice. I appreciate you coming here week after week, dear listener, to listen and learn how to elevate your leadership, grow your practice, and to think and act like the high-impact CEO provider that you're meant to be. I have one request of you. If you've benefited from this show, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review with your thoughts on the show. Your feedback and review help us get in front of other amazing practice owners just like you. Thank you again for listening, and until next time.